Look, here is the deal. Most of you are being lied to by guys in expensive suits who have never actually felt the heat of a looming rent payment or a grocery bill that doubled in 2 years. They tell you to skip the latte to become a millionaire. That is a lie. You are not broke because of coffee. You are broke because you do not have a system and you are playing a game designed for you to lose. If you are tired of watching your bank account stay flat while the world gets more expensive, listen up. I am not a financial advisor. I am the guy who was in your shoes not too long ago staring at a negative balance because I thought I could get rich quick with option trading. Oh shit, that was a dark time. I lost money, I lost sleep, and I felt like a failure. But I climbed out. I went from $0 to $120,000 by getting sober about my math and ruthless about my strategy. Today, I am your wealth partner. We are talking about the real stuff. The 2026 economy is a beast. Inflation is not some abstract number. It is a tax on your existence. If your money is just sitting in a big bank savings account earning 0.01%, you are literally getting poorer every single second. Stop doing that. The first thing we need to kill is the idea of the perfect budget. Most people struggle with budgeting because their system does not match reality. They make it too strict or too complicated. They base it on a version of themselves that does not exist. You know, the version that never buys a drink or never goes out for pizza, that is fake. If your budget feels like a punishment, you will quit in 3 weeks. My system is built for real life. It is built for the person who wants to be rich but also wants to live. Here's the hard truth. Wealth is not about how much you make. It is about how much you keep and how hard that money works for you. I focus on 3 core pillars: living below your means, consistent automation, and aggressive growth. Look at the numbers. If you live on 70% of what you earn, you have 30% to change your life. I follow a 70-20-10 rule that is slightly different from the textbook. 70% for your life, your needs, your rent, your food. 20% for the core wealth engine. 10% for the aggressive, high-risk growth or just pure fun. But before we even talk about where to put the money, we have to talk about the mindset. Most of you are waiting for a bull market to save you. The market does not care about you. The market is a tool. Ray Dalio always talks about the economic machine, debt, cycles, and productivity. Right now, we are in a cycle of high debt and high noise. The only way to win is to stay calm when everyone else is panicking. I remember 2025 when everyone thought the world was ending because of the tech layoffs. I did not sell. I bought more. I bought when it was painful. That is how I hit that 120,000 mark. Injustice and volatility are your friends. If you have a long-term horizon, let us get into the actual portfolio. If you want to grow wealth without spending 8 hours a day staring at charts, you need a core. My core is 70% VU. That is the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. It is the 500 biggest companies in the US you are betting on the entire economy, not just one horse. Then I put 20% into SCHD. This is the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. Why? Because cash flow is king. Dividends are the checks you get just for owning the stock. When the market goes sideways, South Carolina HD keeps paying you. It is the ultimate psychological safety net. The last 10% is my playground. Maybe it is VUG for high growth tech, or maybe it is a small position in a project I believe in. But that 90% is the rock. You do not touch the rock. You do not check the rock every day. You just feed it every single paycheck. I see so many people trying to find the next 100 times coin or some penny stock. Look, I get it. The dream of hitting it big is intoxicating, but that is gambling, not investing. I would rather be a boring millionaire in 10 years than a broke gambler today. Wealth is a marathon, but everyone is trying to sprint. If you are 22, 25, or 30, time is your greatest asset. Compounding is the 8th wonder of the world. If you invest $500 a month at an 8% return, in 30 years you have over $700,000. If you wait 10 years to start, you have to invest almost $1,500 a month to catch up. The cost of waiting is higher than the cost of any mistake. So, what should you do tomorrow? Step 1. Look at your credit cards. If you have high interest debt, you are not an investor. You are a victim. Pay that off first. That 25% interest rate is a hole in your boat. Step 2. Set up a recurring transfer. Do not trust yourself to invest what is left at the end of the month. There will never be anything left. The world is too good at taking your money. Automate it so the money leaves your account the day you get paid. Pay yourself first. Step 3. Simplify your life. Living below your means does not mean being a hermit. It means knowing the difference between a need and a dopamine hit. Do you need the newest phone every year? Number that $1,000 invested in VO 5 years ago would be worth so much more. Now, I still drive an older car. I still live in a modest place. Why? Because the freedom of having $120,000 in the bank feels better than any luxury car ever could. Confidence comes from your balance sheet, not your outfit. I want you to be the person who stays cool when the headlines say the market is crashing. The headlines are designed to sell ads, not to make you rich. When the market drops 10%, do not run. That is a clearance sale. Imagine going to a store and seeing your favorite shoes for 20% off. You would be happy, right? Why is the stock market the only place where people run away when things go on sale? It makes no sense. Be the person who stays, be the person who buys. I am here to walk with you. I am still learning, still growing, and still making mistakes. But I am moving forward. The path to wealth is boring, repetitive, and requires a lot of discipline. But the result is a life where you do not have to say yes to a boss you hate. A life where you can help your family without stressing about the cost. That is what we are playing for. This is not just about numbers on a screen. It is about power. It is about taking your time back. If you found this useful, do not just watch it. Do one thing today, open that account, set that transfer, call out your own bullshit. The 2026 economy will reward the disciplined and punish the distracted. Which one are you going to be? Keep your head clear. Stay focused on the long game. I will see you in the next one. Let us get this money. Most people struggle with budgeting because their system or their budget that they create, it doesn't match reality. They either make it too strict, they make it too complicated, or they base it on this like perfect version of themselves that doesn't actually exist. So in this video, I am going to walk you through the exact budget system that I personally use. This is a real system that helps me control my money. I completely avoid stress and I can consistently save and invest money every single month. So if you feel like you have a lack of control of your money or you feel like you should be doing better financially, but you don't know where your money keeps going, this video will show you a very realistic way to fix that. So before we jump into the video though, comment down below, do you currently follow a budget? I am very curious to see what people do, because I feel like if you are not tracking your money, I am not saying it has to be every single dollar, but if you are not tracking your money at all, I feel like it is hard to know how much you are going to consistently save or invest each month, but that is just my opinion. I am very curious to hear what people say. Now, before I actually break down the budget, I do want to explain why I feel like most people's budgets fail in the first place. I feel like there's three main reasons. The first one is that they too strict. The second one is that they too complicated, or the third one is that they rebuilt on like fake behavior, like, oh, I can follow this, but like in reality, they haven't been and they never going to follow it. Starting out with budgets that are too strict, I feel like sometimes people create budgets on who they think they are, but not who they actually are in regards to their spending. A lot of times people will create a budget and they'll say, hey, I am not going to go out to eat at all. There is going to be no impulse spending and I am perfectly disciplined. But like that is not reality. You could have social plans that come up where somebody invites you to, go get dinner. Go get lunch somewhere, and then you are going to spend money on that. Some people do like to spend money when they re-stress. That is very common, or there is just random expenses, or maybe it is just a bad day. Maybe you were planning on, making food at home and you just had a shitty day at work and you are going to go get food instead. Like, it is really common for these things to happen. And I feel like when budgets are too strict on people, it feels more like a punishment. Like it is something that they really hate. And so you don't want it to feel that way. You want it to feel like an actual plan that you can follow. Because if your budget just gets rid of any fun or enjoyment that you have in life, you are just going to eventually quit it. Like you are not going to stick to it. And that is not what we want. We want to have something that we can stick to long term. So that is what could happen if budgets are too strict, but also if budgets are too complicated, the same thing can happen. I mean, it is a pretty simple concept. If a budget takes up way too much of your mental energy, you are probably going to quit using it after a while. Maybe use it for a couple weeks or a month or a couple months, but after a while, it is just going to be too hard to keep tabs on everything. And I think when people make budgeting too complicated, they have way too many categories. They retracking every single purchase, they constantly updating their spreadsheet or some app that they use, and they may start out motivated, but again, 1 month, 2 months, however long it takes, they eventually going to quit because it is just going to feel like a chore to them. It is going to feel like a burden. It could also take a while and they don't want to spend the time doing it, or maybe they fall behind once and then they just give up. And I feel like most people quit budgeting, not because they don't care, but because it is just exhausting. And that is what happens if you have a very complicated budget, in my opinion. A good budget, it should feel like a plan. It is not a restriction, and it also should feel like a system that you can just repeat. It is not like some guessing game every time. In my opinion, when it comes to budgeting, this should be a system where you can control your money. You can still enjoy the things you want to enjoy, and you are not going to hate your life. I want you to be able to have fun and enjoy things, but also if you can save and invest, that is an amazing thing, because as I talk about, the earlier you start investing, the better, and I say that nonstop on this channel. So let's actually jump into the budget template that I use. Now, I want to be very clear here that I am not using my actual numbers, but this is the actual template that I use. I update this every 2 weeks very consistently, and how I structure it is based around 2 paychecks per month. So even if you are paid bi-weekly, I still think you should budget on 2 paychecks per month, whether you are semi-monthly or bi-weekly. The only difference here is semi-monthly is you are normally paid the 1st and the 15th, whereas bi-weekly you are just paid every other week. With the bi-weekly paycheck system, you are paid every 2 weeks. So normally there is 2 months in the year where you are actually going to get 3 paychecks, but normally let S just budget for 2 paycheck. And like I said a second ago, I don't do a monthly budget. I track my expenses every time I get paid, so I am normally trying to stay on top of this every couple of weeks. And I am still looking at my money along the way, so I am going to throw up the screenshot here. And this is the middle of the month paycheck. So Let S pretend that somebody has $200 in their checking account and then they just got paid. And let S say your after-tax pay that you got was $2,000. So your total cash that you now have sitting in your checking account is $2,200. So that is the starting point. That is the money that has came in. This is the amount of cash you have to mess around with. Now, I like to break my budgeting down between needs and wants and then anything left over and try to keep a little cushion we can save or invest. So I will explain all this in a second, starting out with needs. Again, these are all fake numbers, but I do feel like it is a pretty realistic budget with some of the numbers I am using, especially if you are just like a single person and I would say 23, 24, 25. If you are in your early to mid 20s, I feel like this is somewhat realistic. Of course, it depends where you live though, so your needs are absolute necessities. This is what you need to live, right? You got to pay your rent, you have to pay your electric bill, you have to pay your car payment, you have to pay gas, groceries, and I do put credit cards in the needs category because I do feel like you should be zeroing out your credit cards, and I will talk about that a little bit later because this is the one category where you could really screw yourself. But overall, these are all necessities, and when you are looking at this $1,055 number, the needs, this is only for half of the month. So the rent plus fees, that is not $685 for the full month. That is half. And let me break down the rent plus fees just to explain here, because typically when you are renting a lot of companies, they will include other things. It is not just the rent. So maybe you have to pay for trash and that is $20 a month, or your internet is $80 a month, and then your water, or maybe there are different amenities that you pay for, whether it is, a parcel like a package service if they have Amazon lockers, or maybe they have a swimming pool and a hot tub and a gym, or, pest control as well. And so that is the rent plus fees. It is your rent plus anything that you may get charged for from the apartment or the house that you are living at that is included into your rent. So as you can see here, I have $1,200 for the rent, $20 for trash, $80 for internet, $40 for water, $25 for the amenities, and then $5 for pest control. This makes a total of $1,370 for the month. So if you are breaking that down in between two paychecks, that means you need to save $685 for this. Now, some of the utilities are included in the fees here. You could also break this out if you wanted to, but you got the $685 here. Let S pretend your electric bill is around $100 a month, which I do feel like is pretty normal for most people. So, you got a 100 here. Split that in half. That is going to be $50 that you are going to save every month for that. And then car payment, I am assuming a $300 monthly car payment. Obviously, this could be different. You could have a paid off car. It really just depends on the person, but we just running hypothetical numbers here. So the car payment, 300, split that in half, you got 150. Now, yes, I do not split in half $50 for me. That covers me for 2 weeks on gas. I am not necessarily getting gas every week, but I normally spend, I would say, between like 35 and like 45-ish dollars every couple 2-3 weeks on gas. And of course, this depends what kind of car you drive, the cost of gas in the state you live in, but for me, this is just what works. And I do feel like it is pretty realistic for a lot of people. So the $50 is the first number that we're not going to cut in half here. Like that is assuming that the $50 here will keep you completely filled up on your tank for at least 2 weeks. Now, credit cards we have at 0. We will revisit this later, but then groceries we have 120. So this is assuming that basically if you have $120 right now, that should last you for 2 weeks of groceries. Again, this is assuming you are a single person. You are not a full-on family, but I do think $60 a week is pretty good. I mean, if you are eating a lot of whole foods, which is what I try to do, I could easily get ground beef, chicken, and a bunch of foods and even still just get a couple of processed things on the side. It easily cover me $60 a week, no problem. So these are your needs right here. So the sum of your needs, the 685 plus the 50, the 150, all these different numbers right here, that is $1,055. Now, your wants, these are recreational things. This could be like when you are going out to eat. This could be Netflix. This could be Spotify. This could be your gym membership. This is anything that you don't necessarily need to live, but these are things that you want to do. It could be your budget to go out to the movies. It could literally be anything that is just recreational that you want to save up money for. That way you are accounting for it. All right, so I am assuming here you have a standard Netflix plan, which I believe is around $18 a month. Spotify, I am assuming, is $12 a month. So there is your 6, and then the gym is $50 a month. So that is going to be 25 cuz we redoing half of it. Now, the leftover section, this is the fun part. This is basically your fun money, is you take the 2,200, you subtract out your needs, you subtract out your wants, and that is what is left over, which makes perfect sense. Now, below the leftover, I have this section called the cushion. This to me is what is going to get me by if there is any small little emergencies that could come up. And what I normally do every time I get paid is I take the rent plus fees. Not all of the needs, just the rent plus fees. And I move that into a different account. So that could be a savings account, that could be another checking account, but I just move it off to the side. So that 685, I am going to just go throw that in savings for the second paycheck. And then the remaining money, whether it is the $50 for the electric bill, the $150 for the car payment, the gas, $50, the groceries, that is still going to stay in my checking account. So your cushion is going to be the $500 plus these remaining categories that you are going to keep, but still factoring in all of the needs into the leftover. So I found that this gives me actually a pretty sizable cushion because if I add up the electric bill, the car payment, all these other sections below rent and fees, but above the wants. That is an extra $370, so that explains the cushion there. Now finally, if you want to look at your saving or your investing money, all that does is it just takes your leftover amount of money minus your cushion. And your cushion you can set to whatever number you want to, but as you can see here, it is $605 after you factor in all of your needs. All your wants, a little bit of cushion left over. You could then invest $600 from that paycheck, which is pretty nice. And I also have a little 401k section right below. So, technically you are investing more than 605, assuming you are just throwing a little bit of money into the 400.